As we know, as a food technologist, food operators, food manufacturers, and all those people who are involved in the food industries, they know that the safety of their products and their services are very, very important. Over the years, the industries as well as the regulatory authorities, they have developed so many food safety management systems. Food safety management system, they are designed in order to control the food contamination, food adulteration, as well as the food poisoning, which is very, very common in our food industry. These systems start from HACCP, which is a hazard analysis and critical control points, which is a scientific system, which was made for the NASA scientists or astronauts, and then it became a public system that anybody who wants to operate any food establishment, food factory, or a restaurant, they want to make sure that the owner, the stakeholder, they have implemented a hazard analysis and critical control point strategies so that they can avoid any kind of accidental contamination of the food, and which indirectly or directly can affect the consumer as well as the system. But HACCP principles are only used to detect and mitigate the strategy. It's a preventive approach. Okay, in that approach, that we need to make sure that what are the critical control point in the food processing, and we define them, we define their critical limits, then we define their mitigation strategies, then we monitor them, then we take corrective action in case of out of hand, and then we monitor them, and then we document them and take corrective action. So this is a HACCP principle, which is a scientific approach used by so many years since last 1959 to up till now. All the food safety systems, basic systems, are based on HACCP. And in addition to that, some companies, some countries, they put quality in it, just like ISO 22000, 2018. Some people put security in that one, which is just like GFSI, Global Food Safety Initiative. They make it FSSC 22000. Some countries, they made it quality and food safety mandatory on the basis of BRC system, which is British Tail Consortium. Some countries, just like Australia and New Zealand, they put safe quality food, quality and safety as implemented as a paramount to the basic food safety system, which is the HACCP system. So HACCP, ladies and gentlemen, I think this is not our topic, but this is fundamental importance, because HACCP is the main thing which will mitigate the strategies or mitigate the risks which are happening accidentally, but they are on a scientifically basis. But they cannot be threats, they cannot be economically motivated, but they are mostly in the processes which are scientifically motivated. Whereas when we talk about food fraud, fraud is an English word. English word, fraud, F-R-A-U-D, means anything which is a purposely we do altering or misrepresenting, mislabeling, substituting, or tampering with anything is called a fraud. But when it comes in the food industry, so it becomes a food fraud. So anything, whether we need to alter to make it shape better, whether we misrepresent, if the things or the contents or the products which is not inside, but we put the label on it, which is a different type of it, and then we substitute the ingredients, the raw ingredients in any kind of products, or whether we tamper in any food or change any food products content at any point from a food chain or food process, whether it is from farm, whether it is going to the table, which is a food supply chain. So it becomes a food fraud. Fraud is a fraud. It means that we are lying to the customers, we are lying to the consumers, we are lying to the suppliers, we are lying to maybe to the management or whatever, just to make a petty profit. So we do a fraudulent activities, okay, which is very, very bad in our food industries. It can happen starting from the raw material. It is very, very common that it is difficult to make it in the final product, because if the raw material has been compromised, it has been duplicated, it has been altered or substituted as an ingredient, the final food product or the food packaging, you cannot detect it. So it is starting from a final, it is starting from a raw material, and then it goes into the chain or all those kinds of things. Fraud is always intentional. Intentional means that people know that they are doing right, and their intentions and their niya or niyat it is not good, because they want to make this fraud to get more money, more economical, what you call it, profit, so that they can get a better outcome out of it. It could be dilution. For example, a lot of people, we are talking about in our country, people put, water, a lot of water in the milk just to make, if it is a 2 liter of milk, they want to make it a 4 liter of milk. Okay, so the dilute, or sometimes people add to a raw material or on a food product some kind of product, just like in chilies, that's like in spices, just like in honey. So many things. I'll just give you a few examples of that one, so that it can increase the weight, it can increase the volume. So if they were supposed to sell 2 liter, 2 kg, or 500 ml, now they are doing double, triple, or 4 times, in addition to get more profit of that. The other thing is misrepresentation of the material. For example, if you want to say that we did not put a proteins in it, but outside you put a label that 500 grams of proteins are here, or high quality sugars are there, or other food contents are there, so that the people can give you more money and you will get a financial benefit out of it. So this again, it becomes a fraudulent act, which will, in a short term, you can say that you will get a financial gain, but ladies and gentlemen, in our food industry, it doesn't work for a long time. Okay, and food fraud commonly, in a wide range of fraudulent acts are available, which can cause a lot of problem with the industry, with the supplier, with the consumer, and with all those kinds of things. There are different forms of fraud in our food industry. One is substitution. Substitution means that you don't have the actual raw material and you change from the actual raw material to a cheaper or substitute one. So this is one of that one. Dilution. You want to increase the volume by adding the things which will increase the volume and the weight of the thing, so you can dilute it. Counterfeiting. Counterfeiting means that you are changing the name. For example, you are having some kind of food products which doesn't contain, I'm just giving you an example of a meat. For example, you are selling, it's a beef, or it's a mutton, or it's something like that, but actually it's not. It's maybe a horse meat, it's a donkey meat, so you're counterfeiting. Okay. Then one of what you call it's unapproved enhancement. Sometimes the people, they want to increase the value of their products by adding prohibited elements in that one. Okay, just like if you go to a gym and you want to increase the body weight of your body, then sometimes there's the supplements which we are using here or there, they put steroids, but they don't declare it, and at the end of the day, when they do a dope test, they got caught. Just like in Russia, 3 years before, all of their athletes were systematically enhanced performance-wise by giving them some kind of steroids which are prohibited, and up till now, these Russian athletes, they cannot participate in the Olympics games. So these are unapproved enhancements which a lot of people, a lot of companies, they do in order to gain more things. Then there are so many things in gray market, what we call it, those markets, those elements, those substitutes, those ingredients, those final products, which they don't have a direct control by the regulatory authority. And then you don't have a proper standardization for those products, and you are unable to control the counterfeiting or something like that. Mislabeling, as I said that earlier, that mislabeling means that you want to sell a product which doesn't contain carbohydrate, fats, but you are putting over there the grammage or the volume wise and the source of that. Mislabeling is very bad. The Muslims, they don't eat the gelatin and the what you call it, glycerine from the pork origin, but some companies, they put it that it's a bovine origin. Bovine origin means that a beef origin. So it's a mislabeling kind of. Concealment means it's a hiding. You have to hide something from there. So a lot of companies, they make the product, just like in Pakistan recently there was a milk used for the tea. Okay, I don't want to name it, and there was a big regulatory what you call it, a catch up for that company, because they were concealing that there are certain chemicals were used in preparation of that milk. Actually, it was not original milk, it is a combination of the chemicals which were used to represent as a milk, and it was sold as a milk, and there was a very big advertisement in the newspaper, in the television, in the social media. And but at the end of the day, when the food authorities, they did the analysis of that milk powder and milk, they found out that it's not actually it's a cow milk or goat milk or camel milk or something. It's a combination of so many chemicals which were united together so that it becomes a white solution, and it is very, very harmful, which actually, if you will take for a long time, it can affect your liver, your kidneys, and your pancreas. So it was very, very harmful. So the company was grabbed, and they are, I think they are penalized for that. So we have to, these are the different kinds of, ladies and gentlemen, the name of a food fraud. Whether we are hiding, we are concealing, we are substituting, you name it. 6, 7 type of the things which encompass in that food fraud. What are the main items? There are so many main items. All items, a few examples are there, Milk is number one all over the world. The people, they put melamine, they put different kinds of chemicals, they put different, water is a very common ingredient because, you cannot find out whether how much thickness, how much condensed the milk should be, how much the natural protein should be. Everybody likes milk. They want to drink milk. They use everywhere. So the best ingredient to increase the volume is the dilution. So dilution means put more water to increase so that more people will buy it. A lot of people, profit will come, but at the end of the day, it will come. Olive oil. Olive oil is one of the ingredients nowadays. The doctor recommend it will lower the cholesterol. It will stop from having heart diseases and everything, but you know that olive oil is very, very expensive, and it is not found in every country. It is mostly available, it is mostly produced in the tropical environment. It is not a product of cold countries, especially the West. So it is transported from, the Western Sahara, the Spain and Italy and all those kind of countries. So there are a lot of companies, they use an olive oil name, but they put a little bit percentage of a original olive oil, and the rest is a normal olive oil. So, but again, you cannot detect it because at the end of the day, only the labs can detect it. As an end consumer, we cannot detect it. We can just cook it, we can drink it, we can use anywhere olive oil, and we don't know. But at the end of the day, this is a very, very common product that where is there honey. Honey, exactly, again, it is not a processed honey. Everybody likes to have a natural honey. Natural honey is grown from the bees, honey bees, and it is again, it's not available everywhere. So people try to put actually, a lot of companies, they put a sugar content in the honey. They gave a flavor of honey flavor, but they add actually sugar. And if this honey is going to be, you keep it for a long time, you will see that the natural honey will not crystallize, but the artificial or adulterated or contaminated or diluted or substituted, you name any kind of fraud. So it will be, you will see after a certain amount, after certain number of days or certain number of months, it is going to be crystallized. All the sugar will crystallize at the bottom, and you will see a light water content on the top. So you will see that it is, you can see that it's a kind of adulteration, which is available in a honey. That's why honey is very, very expensive all over the world, especially the pure honey. And there are very few people, they know what is the taste of honey. They take it as a natural honey, but it's natural, not a natural honey. Saffron in spices is an Indian spice, is a South Saharan spice, very expensive product. Saffron, people use it to flavor it, to color it, but very, very expensive. Now the people are using wooden, dark wood, dark red wood, what you call it, a paste of the wood in this saffron, so that the people, when they use it, they use it as a saffron, but actually it's not a saffron. And it is, if you will see all these products, whether it's an olive oil, whether it's a honey, whether it's a saffron, these are expensive products. So the people wants to make this from these expensive products more money, more financial benefits, so that and these are those products, ladies and gentlemen, that we use very commonly every day in our homes, in our restaurants, in everywhere. And we don't have the lab. Nobody is having a lab in the restaurant or everywhere or at home that we can detect the quality and the adulteration levels or the fraud, something like that. Fish, coffee again, orange juice, apple juice, you name it, black pepper again, sand in it, tea leaves, so many things. These are I'm just giving you an example of those things which we are using every day on our table, whether in breakfast time, whether on a lunch time, whether at a dinner time, you name it, okay, and you will find it and you will never know it, that these things has been adulterated and all these kinds of things are happening to us and we are using it very, very commonly. But you should know as a food specialist that why we need to do, I will discuss in coming slides, why we need to control it, how to do a mitigation strategy for that. If you go to look at these are the different pictures from different newspapers, from different magazines, from different something, that in France, in McDonald's, this was in France, in McDonald's, they found out, they just took a random samples from McDonald's and they found out from the beef burger that it was not a beef burger, rather it was a horse meat. So you can imagine that one. Okay. Then in South Africa, in Pakistan, okay, they found out that the meat which is labeled as a beef or a meat, it was sold as a donkey meat. Okay. In China, in India, you name, all over the world it happens. All over the world it happens. Water, milk, fish, and even in Pakistan, last year, I think police catch how many trucks of the donkey skins. It means that they are not using donkey skin to make the fur coats or something like that, but rather they are using the meat of the donkey to supplies at the restaurants and all those things where they are using the their meat as the burgers or all these kinds of gravies which are very, very popularly we eat every day with taste and love. So these are happening everywhere. That's why the standard food fraud came in. There are two types of economically motivated adulterations. One is that they sell the food which is unfit and unharmful. Okay, and harmful, sorry. Just like, they do animal byproducts, they put it in the food chain. Okay, then they're sending and packing and meat where the origin is, they don't know whether it's a beef, whether it's a mutton, whether it's a camel, whether it's a ostrich or turkey or something like that. They sell it without any origin. Okay, and then there are some products which they sell it used by the date that you have to use these products up to this date, otherwise it's harmful, because they know that these are potentially harmful products if they are not going to be used for certain purpose at a certain time at a certain temperature. So that is a sale of the food which is unfit. But there are food products mislabeled, but they are not harmful, frankly speaking. They cannot affect. For example, if you are taking a honey or whether you are drinking a milk with the water in it, you will not get sick, but you will not get even the benefit out of it. If you are taking a honey with the sugar, of course you are not getting a benefit of the honey, but at the end of the day it is not going to make you sick. So this is a deliberate. One is unsafe selling of deliberately selling, and one is safe but deliberately selling. For example, sometimes they change the products and they give you cheaper alternatives. Sometimes, for example, the basmati rice has been adulterated with the cheaper varieties, but they put outside the label it's a basmati rice, but it is actually not a basmati rice. Okay, when you cook it, so it's not a long thread or something like that. The taste is not like, the aroma is not there. So all these kinds of things, it will not make you sick, but at the end of the day, they are cheap. They charge you for a basmati rice, but they did not give you a basmati rice. They give you a alternate to that one. Then there is a excuse me. Then they write on the packaging material false statements. What is the source of ingredients? For example, whether it is it's made in Pakistan, but they put it came from what you call it, Lebanon. It came from US. It came from Canada. It came from UK or something. But actually, it is not. It is homemade or something like that. Then sometimes they say it's a plant origin, but it's not a plant origin. For example, Muslims, they love to have all those kind of supplements which are having a plant origin or veg origin or something like that, but actually they are not. So there is a contamination of pork skin, pork's bones, or internal organs of pork or something which We don't like it. So that's why there is a misrepresentation of the ingredient as well as the geography as well as the origin, whether it's an animal origin or a plant origin. So that's why these are two main types of economically motivated adulterations. Then if there is an adulteration, ladies and gentlemen, then we need to do some kind of strategies which can control. So of course, people, scientists, researchers, food scientists, all those people are working on these kind of food safety management systems. So first is the food safety management system is that they should not make you sick. And for that food safety management system, it starts from HACCP, it goes to 22,000, it goes to FSSCINFO 22,000, it goes to BRC, it goes to IFS, it goes to Safe Quality SQF. They go and go and go. So all food safety management systems, they have a mitigation strategy so that if there is unintentional or accidental adulterations, so they can control it. If it is science-based, we call it say HACCP. If it's a science-based, we call it say HACCP, and that's a food safety management system, which we already discussed, hazard analysis and critical control point strategies, which we need to control the food safety issues for unintentionally or accidentally adulteration, but these are scientific based. It means there is something wrong during the process, during the manufacturing of certain food items. It is scientifically motivated and they have a scientific reason for that one. Second one is a food defense. Food defense is what we are talking about, is not today, which will be in the next lecture, the mitigation of intentional adulterations. Okay, again, intentional, it means that someone wants to do something wrong with the food, but it is ideologically motivated. What is ideologically motivated? It means that the gentleman or the lady or somebody or some institute or some firm or some company wants to make someone, for example, sick. Okay, so intentionally, ideologically motivated. They cannot get a profit out of it, but they want to make us sick. For example, okay, there are a lot of people in the companies I've seen. They want to put they try to put broken glasses inside the food because they wanted to sabotage the reputation of the company. So ideologically, they were sick. They were psychopath. Okay, some people, they want to put some kind of poison. Okay, this is again a ideological. It is not a economically motivated. That's a food defense, and for that food defense, the strategies and mitigation and risk assessment has been talked in FSSC 22,000 standard, which talks towards a risk management of threat assessment. We call it a threat assessment strategies, mitigation strategies. The third, which we are discussing today, is a food fraud, because here the people want to make profit out of it. That they want to adulterate the food, they want to intentionally cross-contaminate the food, but the reason is what? They want to make profit out of it. They don't want to endanger us, they don't want to kill us, but at the end of the day, they want us that they will get the more dollars, more riyals, more rupees, more anything, euros, okay? So it is economically motivated, less dangerous than food defense, which is threat. But again, it is a social responsibility of that. Why food fraud is increasing? Because we are getting greedy. That's the main thing which I'm getting to it. That challenging economic times, the people are suffering from hunger. People are greedy, basically. I will say not. I don't buy that. The economical conditions of the countries, even the economical conditions of the countries are not good. But if they will adulterate, it means they want to make the people, not make the climate sustainable. So that's why. And nowadays, the food chains today becomes very complex, very, very complex. Yeah, the food what we are getting in our countries, at our homes, it comes through different sources. It is not directly from farm to your table. It comes from maybe one continent to second continent to sea to air to land, and all these kinds of different challenges of temperature, up and down, and humidity, up and down, and all these kinds of things. It causes a economical effect. But this economical times doesn't mean that people have to undertake this pressure and they start cheating the people. So although the challenging times are there, but as a Muslims, we think that it is not advisable. And you must be remembering that one example, what happened, that in Hazrat Umar Razillah Ta'ala's time, one girl and his mom, he heard the story that her mom wants to increase the water in the milk, and she said, no, I won't do that, and all those kinds of things. So we don't believe in these economical effects, because over witness is Allah, and Allah doesn't like us to cheat, whether it is economical conditions are good or bad. Why important? It's very, very important. You are all intelligent, you all are wise. That why it is important to prevent the food fraud. Food fraud, we doesn't want to what you call it, stop it, because it will harm you or you will get sick or something like that. But yes, indirectly it can cause illness and even death if the ingredients, for example, in the spices, in the saffron, and in so many things, you won't believe it. If you will see, I think you must be seeing some kind of media, social media, and if you will just type of food fraud and something like that, you will be amazed to see and to know that what kind of substitutes, what kind of ingredients are used to cause a what you call it economical effect. But at the end of the day, it's very, very injurious and very, very dangerous for the health of the people, and which caused that a lot of deaths. Just one example of that, in 2008, people used in the milk is a melamine powder to increase the protein content of the milk, and almost 50,000 babies were hospitalized and 6 deaths after having this powder milk. And I'm telling you, powder milk is one of the most important and one of the toppest and the hot product which contains substitutes. So you make sure that whenever you recommend, you see or you use it from a very, very reliable resource, that where you make sure that because these baby milk and formulas are used by the babies or the infants, which are very, very low immunity in their body, and which can cause deaths in relation to diarrhea, vomiting, dehydration, and it can cause it's a bigger, very, 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 very dangerous kind of ingredient which they are using, especially. And this is one of the most common and most what you call it expensive product, again, a baby powder. Okay, and there are a lot of contaminants they are using, alternative or substitutes they are using for that. So you got to be very careful about that. Why it is difficult to detect food fraud? As I said, that everybody is not having a lab at home. Okay, and when it is economically motivated, so people tend to use very, very common strategies and very, very common ingredients, so that it won't affect their businesses. So you got to make sure that it is a very, 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 very difficult to find a food fraud until and unless it is physically visible or something like that, or we are smart enough to detect that one, because we know otherwise 99% of the people, they use it, people make profit out of it. And if sometimes you call it something happens, some big accident happens, then they caught, otherwise let it go. So that's why it is important to know that what we have to do when we are doing that one. What is the impacts of the business? Impacts of the business is that we lose the consumer trust. If we will do as a business, okay, our sales will go down. There will be crisis. Maybe there will be a litigation. Maybe there will be a court inquiry. Maybe the government will put us in a problem. Regulatory management system will go up and catch us. Insurance, liabilities, everything against any business who is doing that one. On the consumer, of course, maybe it is not harmful, but at the end of the day, you never know. It can cause, of course, it will cause you that you will spend more money against a less value products, and sometimes a health effects, sometimes a fatal effects can affect the body of the people. We will get, as a consumer, low quality products without our knowledge, without our will. Motivated adulterations, we will try to purchase a high product at the end of the day. That's why we say that try to buy the products from reliable sources, from reliable companies. Do or read sometimes the reviews of the products, reviews of the company, so that you will know that whether this company had any kind of complaint from the previous. You should know the history of that, so that you will know that whether you are buying any products from reliable sources. Okay, because at the end of the day, it is the trust of our consumer. It is the trust of our consumer. It should be fair, and we should do a sustainable business practices, ethical business practices, so that we will not have our name to be decompromised. It should not be fraudulent, should not be blacklisted, and we should not play with the trust of the people. And if it is gone, you are out of the business. How to prevent it? Now, there should be some kind of a process that we need to do. So it again is just like again a quality assurance system. We says plan, do, check, and act strategy. Food fraud management system is again a continuous process. Whether you need to do what you need to do, you have to do a evaluation, vulnerabilities. You got to do a evaluation, or you have to do a vulnerability assessment, whether these foods can get contaminated, adulterated or not. This is called vulnerability. Then you have to design the strategy, how to control these vulnerabilities, at which stage it can happen, how to control that. And then you review this mitigation strategy. Mitigation means that you have to plan or prevent a kind of solution, or design a solution that you minimize the effect of that wrongful thing. And then you got to implement those policies and procedures so that these things can be minimized. So it is again, I will just go back again one time. First of all, you have to design a vulnerability assessment. You have to make an assessment for all those products, against all those processes, all those steps, and make a vulnerability assessment. Then, according to the vulnerability assessment, on each stage, you have to design a kind of corrective action and controls, which we call it critical control points, just like in HACCP. So then you review these mitigation strategies or preventive strategies, that whether they are going to work or they are working or not. If they are good, then you implement it and review it. This is what we call is a preventive process of doing that one. For example, in a new ingredients, if you are getting a new ingredient, so you must know that what is this ingredient, what are the vulnerabilities, that if some other ingredient is used as a substituted or as a diluent or as a misconcealment, what could be the effect of in these ingredients on the end product. So then you make a strategy that what stage these ingredients, how they should be inspected, what should be the process of inspection, how to report it, what are the different kinds of physical, chemical, microbiological effect of these ingredients, and how to control that one. So the whole entire process must be carried out in order to know that these strategies are working or they are effective and it can be controlled. Otherwise, like everybody is using, everybody is consuming, we will be end up like that one. It's just a small, what you call it's a diagrammatic representations that starting from, if you will see this diagrammatic presentation of that, so vulnerability characterizations, then it goes to mitigations, prevention strategies, and then you see that whether these strategies are acceptable or not acceptable. If it is not acceptable, you have to change those strategies. If it is this acceptable, then you change to a new one. So, and then you keep this cycle, keep on doing this. It's called plan, do, check, act strategies or PDCA cycle. So again, the same thing, the same terms, but what we need to do, we need to make a plan, we have to draft it, we have to test it, and then we have to implement it. This is the bottom line of that strategy. VACCP. There are three terms. If you will see a right type on the right side of the diagram, there is the first thing is a HACCP, the second thing is a TACCP, and the third thing is a VACCP. What is HACCP? Hazard Analysis Critical Control Point. It's a scientifically based adulteration or contamination for food safety management system, which we discussed. Then it comes a TACCP, TACCP. It's a threat assessment critical control point. It's a threat assessment, as I said. If somebody wants to put a poison in our food, so it's a threat, right? It means that we have to make a kind of critical control points which can stop these threat. And the last one is called a VACCP. VACCP is a vulnerability assessment critical control point. It means that the people who want to adulterate the food because they want to make money, so we call it VACCP, vulnerability assessment critical control point. What is vulnerability? Vulnerability means simple English word that you susceptibility or exposure to a gap or a deficiency that it can cause consumer at health or something like that. So it's a vulnerable. When we say vulnerable,
attendance वगैरह लगी, attendance लगी.
Milk is a vulnerable product. It means that you put a water in it, nobody can detect it. Honey is a vulnerable product. It means that you put a sugar in it, a lot of people, they don't detect it. Okay, so this is what you mean is a susceptibility or exposure to a gap or deficiency, so that, but at the end of the day, it can affect the consumer health, consumer financial position, and if goes against that one, it can affect the reputation of the company. It can affect the operation of the company. It can affect the credibility of the company. So VACCP means vulnerability assessment critical control point. It is the same thing, just like HACCP, we define what are the critical control points. But over there, we talk about hazards, whether it is microbiological hazards, chemical hazards, quality hazards, physical hazard. But in vulnerability assessment, you talk about what are the products which are at the risk, what are the people who can make the profit. Certain products you can make a profit, not everybody. You cannot contaminate or adulterate or substitute or increase dilution with each product or any product. So you have to make an assessment for that one in your processes. Okay, and then again, according to that, you have to make a something like that, a strategy. TACCP, as I said, this is TACCP versus HACCP. TACCP is threat assessment, which we will discuss in a next webinar in detail. Threat means the people wants to make you sick. People wants to get you in a problem by poisoning you, by adulterating your products, by compromising your health, by compromising your company reputation, or anything. So, but on the contrary, VACCP means that you have to see how vulnerable in a supply chain are the processes where your products can be having adulterated. For example, if you are buying a product from the farm and it has to reach your factory, you must know whether in the farm they are not doing any kind of adulteration. Whether it comes to their storage, they are not doing any adulteration. Whether it comes to in your transportation, they are not doing any adulteration. Whether it comes into your factory, the people are not doing any adulteration or to make a profit out of it. So it's a complete, ladies and gentlemen, cycle in which you have to identify the critical control point to make sure that all those steps, all those products are vulnerable or not vulnerable. So this is, remember, in this food fraud, VACCP is the name of the things. Again, this is again a representations. As I just tell you that if you compare three of them, three words, HACCP, TACCP, and VACCP. Okay, HACCP is a adulteration or accidental contamination, but it is based on science. It's a scientific process. TACCP is a behavior problem. If some people are having a behavior or ideological problem, then it could be a TACCP. And VACCP, if somebody wants to make a more money, somebody wants to make a better economy, better financial gains, so it calls a VACCP or vulnerability assessment. That it is all comes, if you will see on the right side of the diagram, an umbrella, all these are three are the parts of food safety management system, ladies and gentlemen. Nobody, now that's why it is put under the umbrella of FSCC. Before it was only food safety management system. Now they call it food safety and security management system, which we need to discuss. Okay, how to conduct a vulnerability assessment? Vulnerability, or susceptibility, or all those kinds of things. So it means that you have to do a assessment. You should know what are your materials and what are the risks. For example, their history. Economic factors. What is the economic factor? It means whether the products are expensive, whether these products are most commonly used or not, whether the value of these products are more, the geography of these products. Geographic means all the products are not available everywhere. Just like I gave you a cinnamon example, that's not everywhere. Okay, SIMPLIFICATION. Okay, so you have to see from where it is coming, whether it is expensive, what is the history of these products. Then you must know what is the physical state of these products, and if it is going to use that, what could be the emerging issues if there will be any kind of ingredients substitutions or misconcealment and everything. This is very, very important, that you must know your material and you must know the risk of that material. And the risk could be from economical risk, geographical risk, physical risk, and all those things. Second thing, in the vulnerability assessment, what you should know the suppliers, whether the supplier management system is effective, whether you are having a quality assurance management system for the supplier selection. Do you know your suppliers? Do you know who manufactures these products? Do you know who is the intermediary broker? Whether do you know any history, whether they were caught because of any misconcealment, they have any history of fraud, they have any history of legal litigations or all those kinds of things. So you must have a very strong quality management system of suppliers. So you should know how to approve the suppliers. You should know how to control the performance of the supplier. This is again a very, very fundamental thing which you should have in your vulnerability assessment. The third thing is, you know the ingredients. You know the manufacturer and the supplier. The third thing is supply chain. Supply chain means that you know to get the products from the farm to the fork. It means that you should know how long it will take, how complex is the supply chain, and what is the supply and demand arrangement. For example, some people, they want more products, but they have a less supply. So it means that the product becomes very, very, what you call it, costly. So then the people start thinking of making double money out of it because the supply is less than demand is more. So let's get out of it. So just like that in the corona, everyone wants to make, the mask, the facial masks and the sanitizer. So supplies was less and demand was more. So the people start to make in the sanitizer, they're putting more of a water rather than methyl alcohol, and the people were using it. Okay, but at least they put a small tinge of a alcohol to get the smell of out of it. This is the recent example I'm just giving you. People were using a special kind of tissue or a ply, what we call it in a medical language, a second 2-ply or 3-ply facial mask. The people were using a low grade material to make these facial masks, which was, rather than preventing the viruses, it was causing a irritational and allergic effect to so many people, so that they cannot wear it. So these are the things are very, very important, gentlemen, where you talk about vulnerability. And sanitizer example is the ideal example of the recent times, which I can give you, that how the people make a lot of money out of selling water rather than sanitizer. And then you should know how your existing control measures are. It means that you should have a proper risk assessment for all your raw materials, how you know their ingredients, you know your supplier management system, you know your supply chain management system, and then you should know what are your internal systems are. If your internal systems are controlled, believe me that you will be having a better chance to control these frauds, and these mitigation strategies will be very, very strong. Otherwise, it will be very, very difficult. In these slides, if you will see that one, continuing the same thing, that if you have a very good mitigation or preventive strategies, you can alleviate or you can decrease the vulnerabilities of the food fraud. For example, if there are inherent variabilities, raw material composition and processing. So you should know whether there is a past and potential raw material adulteration are there, whether there is a business pressure, marketing, pricing, whether the marketing price is less and you want to make more money, you have a difficulty in providing the things. Demand is more, supply is less. Marketing prices is fluctuation. So you have to see, if you will see, it is, if you see a blue and the red, so it's a seesaw. Actually, the seesaw approach. Seesaw means that when you go, your kids must be going to the park and they will be playing this seesaw game, that so you have to measure the weight. Okay, if you are having inherent vulnerabilities more, so your control of or mitigation strategy will be less strong. If your inherent vulnerabilities and business pressures are less, your business control and mitigation measures should be very, very strong. So you have to evaluate whether you are on the blue side, whether you are on the red side. Blue side, if it is down, it means you are having more vulnerabilities. If blue side is up and less, and white and the pinkish side is low, it means you have a strong mitigation strategies and your vulnerabilities are low. So this way, we have to control that one. What to do? Vulnerability we are talking about, VACCP we are talking about, that we have to take care of socioeconomical factors, behavior factors, geological, political factors, historical factors. They call it think like a criminal. That if, for example, I'm a criminal, I'm a thief, I'm a cheater, what should I do? Think like that. That's what is the easy way of doing the vulnerability assessment. That think and sit on the chair of a thief, of a cheater, and then if you say that if I will be a cheater and I will be a thief, what should we doing for this thing or this fraud? And then according to that one, other way around, you should make a control plan. You should have a monitoring strategy. You should have an origin and verification strategy, specification of the ingredients. You should do supplier audits. Maybe the supplier who is providing you a rice, basmati rice. So when you suddenly or surprise do a visit of supplier, maybe you will find that there is a adulteration contamination at their side. Okay, then you must, as a company, as a processing manager, or as a corporate or whatever you are having in industry, you must be having some kind of a small testing lab, or at least you should send some samples randomly at least once in a year to make sure that the things which you are getting from a reliable, so-called reliable supplier, whether they meet your requirement or not. That's why you have to be very, very strong and very strict according to the specification management. And then counterfeiting technologies everybody is using nowadays, so many different kinds of technique. They are using so many kind of different types of tests and all those kinds of things. So gentlemen, if your vulnerability assessment is good, your vulnerability control plan will be very, very effective. If your vulnerability control plan is not good, believe me, we will be keep on drinking the same water, what you call it, a water made of milk. I will say that the white water. Okay, we will be keep on drinking the same olive oil, the same honey, and the same powdered milk for the kids and everything. And at the end of the day, ending up paying more money, getting more sick, and at the end of the loser, what we call it. It's a simple map for the food fraud prevention. If you will remember these 7 steps, it is very, very easy to make your strategy. Number 1, you should know, as I said, the list of the material which you are using. Then map out the supply chain, how the supply chain is coming, whether it is coming directly from the farm to your location, whether it is coming from the supplier to your location, whether it is coming from the farm to the supplier to the middleman, then it is coming. So you have to make sure that where these things can happen. That's why it is said, think like a thief, think like a cheater. That if you will be doing, how or where you will be doing. So that's why. The third step is evaluate the risk. You evaluate the risk, whether it is possible, whether there is a certain steps where these guys can make a profit, and whether these items are worth of making a profit. Then if you think that yes, then you make or assess that we need to put some additional control. Okay, if the critical control point is not working, then we have to make one more control. After that, you implement the system, and then you keep on record the findings, that whether previously you were getting that one, now the content is that, the raw material is getting better, the end product is getting better, you are having less complaints, you are providing the best products, and all these kind of things, you have to record the finding. And if it is doing good, very good, or not good, review it every year, at least every year. You should not make a big gap of reviewing. What happens is sometimes we keep on working on the same strategy with the same everything for a longer period of time, and at the end of the day we got to know a very, very difficult kinds of records which we come across. So that's why it is always important that review it, and review it minimum amply. How the companies can do to prevent that by self-assessing them, and supply chain redundancy. Self-assessment means that if your systems are very strong, if you are strong, if you have a basic system of food safety management system, if you have defined your critical control point on each step, starting from assessing of specification of the raw material, the selection of the suppliers, storage of the material, then it comes supply chain transparency, that how the supply chain is, whether it is transparent. It means that you can evaluate, there is no middleman, there is the proper storage, proper transportation, proper reaching of these products. It means a less chances of having a food fraud. Ladies and gentlemen, food fraud crises are highlighted to reinforcement so that we can combat or we can fight with the food fraud in our organization as well as the whole chain. It starts from internally. Maybe a lot of people inside, they are doing the same fraud when you don't have a very what you call a close surveillance of that one. It doesn't mean everybody from outside the company is cheating. No, the things start from inside. If the people inside are available, who are buying, whether it is supplier, whether it's storekeeper, whether it's production manager, who is involved in this one, with the other people who are outside, because they are the receiving end and they are the giving end. So it means that, so you have to make sure that the companies, proactively work for the prevention of food fraud, because at the end of the day, it is not that who is accepting and who is supplying. It is the end of the day, the company corporate is the one who will be responsible for having a food fraud and litigation and all those kinds of things, financial revenues and all those kinds of things. For that one, BRC made guidelines. The US have their own pharmacopoeia. SSAFE is having their own pharmacopoeia and other strategies. These are very good standard. FSCC 22000, they are having a guidance and standards about food fraud and everything. If you will read FSCC 22000 standard, it's online, free. Go just type it, food fraud, and you will know what are the standards for that one. It is available. It is a part of the standard. All the companies who are going for the certification for the BRC or FSCC 22000, they have to design, provide vulnerability assessment guidelines, vulnerability assessment, critical control assessments, critical control points, and mitigation strategies and everything. Again, the main emphasis is supply chain transparency, that how the raw material is getting, who is the user, where is it disposing. So you should know, the question is, do you have a full visibility of your supply chain? And who are your supply chain suppliers? What supplies them? How you control them? How you change them? So very important factor which come across in these strategy is that you have to look upon your supply chain management. Supply chain management. I said 3 times because it is the most significant factor which will be making a big mark. So you have to map your supply chain, gather all the information from the supplier, okay, and then you make a questionnaire that who are risky, who are having quality assurance, whether you are having auditing processes, whether you are using experts from your organization, you are using consultants and auditors from third party, so that they can provide you a good information of that one, and simplify your supply chain is as much as possible so that the sources of risk can be eliminated and it can be controlled. Ladies and gentlemen, food fraud is a very common things, not because of the socio-economical factors. I must say it's a habit of a lot of people, lot of companies who run these. There is a philosophy problem, there is a, I think, ethical problem, there is a mortality problem, there is a so many psychopathical problems, you can name it, which cause this food fraud at a very higher level nowadays rather than before, when these things were simple. I hope that this presentation of food fraud must provide you a good information so that we can see if we are working in our corporates, whether we have these vulnerability assessment charts, whether we have mitigation strategy, whether we have quality assurance supplier management system, how our supplier management system is effective, how we can control that. All those things, if you control in a very simple chart, beautiful chart, you assess them and then you review them at the end of every year, I can assure you, you can mitigate, you can control, you can prevent these fraud management practices up to 70 to 80% in the cases.